හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Friday, the 16th of February 2024. No theatrics. Malika Kanda magistrate calls for a valid medical report on former health minister's medical condition. CID and the AG's department files a motion requesting an inquiry into the minister's health condition. Detained. Minor staff of the National Hospital of Colombo forcibly detains the hospital's Deputy Director Dr. Ruka Bellana. Health sector trade unions call for his resignation. Air connectivity. Israel and Sri Lanka ink an agreement to increase direct flight operations. The agreement will support the economic recovery, says the aviation minister.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata and Mahish Johnny. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening.
A very good evening, everyone. Good to see you once again right here on First at 9. Good evening, Indivari.
Good evening, Mahesh, and a very warm welcome to all of you joining from home and wherever you are. This is First at 9, your prime time English news service. And once again, we have a number of stories to report tonight. Of course, developments of some of the stories, some developments of key stories and cases happening, especially the case related to former Minister of Health Kehelia Rabukwella, which will be our top story tonight. And also there is a new story from the Indian Congress coming in. I think you'll have something to add as well, Mahesh.
Exactly. So the political spectrum is getting a little bit heated up as we move on towards the presidential election, general election. We don't know what it is going to be. So there are lots of conversations about that. We will bring that stories to you as well, and internationally. Well, one of the key opposition leaders in Russia, well, something interesting happened there because he was anyway in dire conditions. Now he has passed away, and finger pointing has already begun.
Mysteriously.
That's
he
what
dies mysteriously
exactly.
in prison.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, let's find out, as we move on. A lot of people are saying the Russian government is responsible for what has happened. But then again, the Russian government continues to respond to say that they didn't, they don't know. Investigations are underway. Anyway, let's begin tonight's bulletin. And we begin here at home. Now, Malika Kanda magistrate today called on the Defence Council representing former Minister of Health, Kehelia Rabukwella, to submit a valid medical report on the medical complications which prevent the former health minister from appearing before court.
The order was given by the magistrate yesterday when the President's Counsel Anuja Premaratna made submissions on the innocence of the former health minister before the Malika Kanda Magistrates Court.
Meanwhile, the CID and the Deputy Solicitor General Lakshmini Giragama tendered a motion before the court urging an investigation into the purported medical conditions affecting the former Minister of Health.
We reported yesterday that Kehelia Rabukwella was arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department on the 2nd of February over the controversial human immunoglobulin procurement scandal.
Well, when the case was taken up for hearing yesterday, Lakshmini Giragama, the Deputy Solicitor General representing the Attorney General, outlined charges against Rabukwella, accusing him of conspiracy and aiding and abetting the process of providing the medicine in question to the Medical Supply Department.
Legal action on the controversial procurement and distribution of substandard vials of the human immunoglobulin vaccines was taken up before the Malika Kanda Magistrates Court yesterday. However, former Minister of Health Kehelia Rabukwella was not present before the Magistrates Court yesterday on account of his ailing health as claimed by prison officials. Making submissions before court on behalf of the state, Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama claimed that in 2022, the former Minister of Health Kele Rambukwella fabricated a non-existent shortage of pharmaceutical drugs in the country to intentionally abet the misappropriation of 2 billion rupees in public funds through the emergency procurement procedure. The Deputy Solicitor General submitted that since the purchase in question was made under the Indian credit line, all payments had to be made according to the terms and conditions of the credit facility. Subsequently, the Deputy Solicitor General drew the court's attention to the fact that the payments for the vials of the vaccines in question were made from the budget provisions allotted to the Ministry of Health. She also claimed that the purchase of the vaccines in question were misrepresented as a transaction to purchase oxygen. The attorney at law representing former Minister of Health Kele Rambukwella, President's Counsel Anuja Premaratne, subsequently made submissions before the Maliga Kanda magistrate. Through his submissions, President's Counsel Anuja Premaratne reminded the court of the dire socio-economic conditions in the country at the time in question and stated that the condition of the country's health sector was in a perilous state. The President's Counsel then claimed that in light of those circumstances at the height of the crisis, the GMOA revealed the lack of medicine in the country and urged the Minister of Health to import the necessary medicine. President's Counsel Premaratne alleged that those incidents have been forgotten by the complainant in the matter. The counsel for the former health minister then raised concerns on how the former minister was at fault for the criminal acts of the first suspect named in the matter. President's Counsel Anuja Premaratne then pleaded before the Maliga Kanda magistrate, indulging the court on the medical conditions affecting his client. However, the Maliga Kanda magistrate held that the court will only consider a valid medical report on the former health minister's medical condition. Upon considering the submissions made by their legal counsels, the Maliga Kanda magistrate rejected the bail applications of the 7 suspects, holding them in remand custody until the 29th of February. Meanwhile, the Criminal Investigation Department and the Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama tendered a motion before the Maliga Kanda Magistrates Court urging an investigation into the truthfulness of the purported medical conditions claimed by the former Minister of Health Kele Rambukwella. The complainants requested the court to forward a questionnaire on the matter to the prison's medical officer.
Well, the National Hospital in Columbo was engulfed in tension today as the police and the National Hospital staff clashed over the forced detention of the hospital's Deputy Director, Dr. Rukshan Bellana. The army was subsequently deployed to control the situation. Now, the minor staff at the hospital claims that the Deputy Director was detained forcibly due to his controversial remarks against the recent strike action launched by health sector trade unions, while others concerned parties claim that the Deputy Director was manipulated by the top brass of the Health Ministry to further its agenda.
A tense situation erupted at the National Hospital in Colombo today as its minor staff forcibly detained the hospital's Deputy Director, Dr. Rukshan Bellana, at his office. According to the minor staff, he was forcibly held due to his controversial remarks against the health sector trade unions, which launched strike actions demanding the government to provide them an allowance similar to what was offered to doctors. To control the situation, the police were deployed at the scene. However, a tense situation then erupted between the hospital's minor staff and the police. Later, the army was deployed to control the situation. By the evening, the Deputy Director of the hospital, Dr. Rukshan Bellana, was taken out of his office and escorted under police protection. Meanwhile, addressing the media this afternoon, the Health Sector Trade Union Alliance called on the Ministry of Health to remove Dr. Bellana from his position.
ඔහු උදනා කරලා තියෙන සමස්ත සෞඛ්‍ය සේවාවට. ඒ සේරම ඔහුගෙන් ඒ ප්‍රශ්නය අහන්න තමයි ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. අපි මේ නොසන්සුන්තාවය පාලනය කරන්න මේ වෙලාවේ උත්සාහ කරන්නේ අපිට එහෙම කරන්න බෑ. මේක වෘත්තීය සමිති විදිහට මෙහෙවන එකක් නෙවෙයි.
රුක්ෂාන් බෙල්ලන කියන පුද්ගලයා හැසුරුනේ සහ මෙහෙයුවේ සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයේ අවස්ථාවයකට. සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශ නිලධාරීන් කියනවා නෑ අපි නෙමෙයි මෙහෙයුවේ කියලා. මේ වෙලාව ඔබට ඒක පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන් වෙලාව. මේ පුද්ගලයා ඉතා ඉක්මනින් තනතුරෙන් ඉවත් කරලා ලිපිය නිකුත් කරන්න. එහෙම නැතුනොත් අපිට මේ විරෝධතාවය බේර ගන්න බැරි වෙයි.
As Sri Lanka gradually addresses economic woes, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka highlights that the country's inflation rate may deviate from its targeted level in the near term, mainly due to the recent tax amendments and supply-side disruptions, although such impact is likely to be short-lived.
Now, the central bank made those revelations in the recently published monetary publication report of February 2024, which also outlined that inflation is projected to stabilize around the targeted level of 5% year-on-year over the medium term.
Meanwhile, making forecasts on economic growth, the central bank predicted annual economic growth to turn positive in 2024 and gradually reach their potential over the medium term.
Noting several key highlights of Sri Lanka's monetary policy last year, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka claimed that economic activity gradually regained momentum in 2023, supported by corrective policies and structural reforms which brought the unprecedented inflation rate of 2022 down to a single-digit level in 2023. Those revelations were made by the country's top monetary authority on the Monetary Policy Report February 2024, published recently pursuant to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Act No. 16 of 2023. Drawing attention to the policy actions taken by the central bank, the report noted that benchmark interest rates were relaxed on several occasions since June 2023 as inflation decelerated and inflation expectations remain anchored while the external sector showed signs of improvement. In particular, within the first half of 2023, year-on-year headline inflation as measured by the Columbo Consumer Price Index moderated to a single-digit level, dropping to as low as 1.3% in September 2023, within a year since striking its peak. However, inflation moderately accelerated to 4% by the end of 2023 due to supply-driven factors and dissipating effect of the favourable base. Core inflation based on the CCPI also moderated significantly during 2023, reflecting subdued underlying demand pressures. Looking forward, the central bank predicted that inflation may deviate from the targeted level within the near term, mainly due to recent tax amendments and supply-side disruptions, although such impact is likely to be short-lived. According to the central bank, inflation is projected to stabilize around the targeted level of 5% year-on-year over the medium term. Commenting on a key macroeconomic indicator, the central bank outlined that economic growth is expected to remain subdued in the short term but is expected to recover gradually towards its potential, reaching a positive figure in 2024. Meanwhile, the central bank highlighted that risks to real economic growth projections are skewed to the downside, both in the near term as well as in the medium term, as economic activity is susceptible to adverse developments on the global front that affect export recovery as well as loss in productivity due to the outmigration of skilled labor and structural impediments to growth.
While highlighting that current electricity tariffs are unfair, power and energy experts are of the view that a correct power generation mix can help reduce the overall costs of power generation in Sri Lanka. Addressing a conference themed facilitating electricity sector reforms, power experts highlighted the need for long-term power generation expansion planning to determine a suitable power generation mix for the island.
Do you believe the tariff as constructed today fair or unfair?
I should say unfair.
Unfair. How much do you pay the Mahaveli for use of their water? Do you pay anything?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
You don't pay. Requirement from the Mahaveli Authority of Sri Lanka for dam maintenance was 30 million rupees per year.
As long as all the electrical consumers here simply pass down the cost to you, if you are ready to bear that additional cost, we are more than willing to pay.
Taking your challenge on, are you charging an interest cost in the tariff that you can avoid charging?
There is a big legacy debt that we had inherited.
Okay, that was political interference which restrained the PUCL even approving a tariff that goes down.
Exactly. The cost goes up, the price is not adjusted, right. So therefore the result is very clear. Right. At the time the country entered the economic crisis, probably there was about in excess of 500 billion rupees, which was about double the annual revenue of the power sector as a whole, what I would call short-term debts, which means cumulatively overdrafts.
Right.
Not project-related debts.
There's a misconception in the society that people think the way to bring down costs is to generate more from one source and less from another source. Not correct. always it is the correct generation mix that would bring down the overall cost. For example, as at now, the most expensive generating source at hand is generating a unit from diesel, which costs well over 100 rupees. But even under given circumstances, generating from diesel can be the lowest cost option. Generating from diesel can be bringing down the overall cost even much more than having coal, which costs less than 25 rupees a unit when you take the current stock of coal at Noracholi. A lot of people think that we decide the generation mix in order to bring the total cost down. No, that is only one consideration. The generation mix is decided based on 3 criteria. This is called the energy trilemma. If you try to achieve more on one side, if you try to bring down the cost, reliability will come down. For example, during the last 3 consecutive years, we generated over 50% from renewables. Is our cost low? Even as at now, if you take the current energy cost, there are 5 thermal power stations that can generate a unit of electricity less than the price what we pay for solar. But it still doesn't mean that solar is bad or we have to go for thermal. It is all about deciding the correct mix where the solar has to play a part, coal has to play a part, diesel has to play a part, and this mix is decided by the process what we call long-term generation expansion planning. It's a very complicated process.
Do you think the current bill, gazetted one, which provides for minister's appointment, should be amended? Yes or no?
Yes, from me.
Buddhika?
Yes, from me. Yes, very significantly it has to be amended.
Well, President Ranil Wickremesinghe called for an immediate cessation of violence to prevent the rising number of hostilities in Gaza due to the ongoing Israeli-Hamas war, while also underscoring the paramount importance of peace and stability in the region. The president made these remarks during his meeting with the Israeli Minister of Transport and Road Safety, Brigadier General Mir Regev. The meeting delved into crucial matters concerning the safe return of Israeli hostages, with President Wickremesinghe affirming Sri Lanka's unwavering commitment to advocating for their safety. Further, President Wickremesinghe reiterated Sri Lanka's support for the establishment of a Palestinian state. He also emphasized the significance of ensuring Israel's security, fostering a balanced approach to regional peace.
Well, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa assured the commitment of a SJP-led government to establish an education system centered on English language, addressing all school children across the country. The opposition leader also pledged to provide sustainable solutions to all matters concerning employees of the education sector of Sri Lanka.
The 100th edition of the Sakula program to donate digital screens and computers required by schools was held at the Boralaskamuwa Mahavidyalaya today under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂා කේන්ද්‍රීය අධ්‍යාපනයට අපේ රජයක් තුළ මේ අවුරුදු අවසානයේ සිට මුල් තැන දෙනවාමයි කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. නිදහස් අධ්‍යාපනය මම හිතන ආකාරයට තවම එක තැන පල් දෙමින් පවතී. අපේ නව අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමය තුළ මේ නව තාක්ෂණය දූ දරුවන් කොටසකකට පමණක් නෙවෙයි 41 ලක්ෂයට නිවැරදි නූතනවාදී තාක්ෂණයෙන් උසස් මට්ටමක ජාතික අධ්‍යාපන ක්‍රමය අපේ රජයක් තුළ අපි ස්ථාපනය කරනවාමයි කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. මම දන්නවා 2024 මැතිවරණ වසරක් වුණත් මම කියන්නේ නැහැ ඔක්කොගෙම හැම ප්‍රශ්නයක්ම විසඳනවායි කියන ඒ බොරුව මම නම් කියන්නට යන්නේ නැහැ. අනධ්‍යන ගුරු විදුහල්පති ගුරු උපදේශක ගුරු අධ්‍යාපනඥ ගුරු සංවර්ධන නිලධාරී අධ්‍යාපන පරිපාලන මේ කොටස් හතේ සාධනීය ගැටලු වලට අපි තිරසර විසඳුම් ලබා දෙන්නට අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කටයුතු කරනවා.
In the latest development of the Yukthia special operation launched to curb the island-wide distribution of narcotic substances, a 30-year-old suspect was apprehended with 5 grams and 425 milligrams of heroin in possession.
Now, it was revealed that the suspect had been engaging in drug trafficking with a drug dealer overseas via WhatsApp.
With that, here's a look into other local news in brief.
In an unfortunate incident reported from Talaimannar, the corpse of a 10-year-old girl was recovered. The deceased was suspected to be raped before her death. The grandmother of the young girl had filed a missing persons report yesterday, and the police were able to find her corpse this morning during a search operation. A neighbor of the deceased child was arrested over the incident and had later confessed to the rape. The police stated that the arrestee had been under the influence of alcohol when he committed the crime. 2 associates of the infamous underworld figure Ganimula Sanjeeva were apprehended by the police special task force. Investigations revealed that the suspects had been arrested under allegations of abetting a murder and were released on bail. In the meantime, 3 suspects with dried cannabis and narcotic capsules in possession were arrested during an operation conducted by the Thanamalwila police in Surya Ara Thanamalwila. The suspects in question are to be presented to the Walawaya Magistrates Court.
Welcome back to the news. An agreement to initiate direct flights between Sri Lanka and Israel was signed today.
Now, according to the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, Nimal Siripala De Silva, the agreement will be a tremendous advantage to Sri Lanka, particularly adding in its economic recovery.
Meanwhile, revealing details on his discussions with Israeli Minister of Transport and Road Safety, Mir Regev, Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva highlighted that Sri Lanka is expected to receive more Israeli opportunities for employment.
Improving Sri Lanka's air connectivity, an agreement was inked to initiate direct flights between Colombo and Israel's commercial capital Tel Aviv today. The agreement to that effect was signed by Sri Lankan Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripala De Silva and Israeli Minister of Transport and Road Safety Miri Regev at the office of the Ports, Shipping and Aviation Ministry in Colombo. The minister confirmed that the new service is slated to commence in March this year according to a scheduled timetable. Israeli Transport Minister Miri Regev stated that the agreement will bolster bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and Israel and stated that necessary technical assistance to expand facilities of Sri Lanka's airports will also be rendered.
Today we signed the air service agreement between Sri Lanka and Israel, which will facilitate the safe air travel between Sri Lanka and Israel. This will be a tremendous advantage to Sri Lanka because Israel has already committed to take about 10,000 agricultural workers to work in Israel, and we need air travel between Sri Lanka and Israel in order to make it a reality. And in the same time today, the minister in charge of transportation in Israel assured me that they will be giving more employment opportunities to Sri Lankans in Israel, and therefore we need to have this sort of agreement to have safe passage between the two countries. In the same time, this will boost the tourist industry because a lot of tourists who want to visit Sri Lanka, they would like to travel direct between Tel Aviv and Colombo or any other airport in Sri Lanka, and therefore this is of much importance to rebuild our economy also.
Well, the Colombo bourse closed in green today, aided by financial and industrial stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange All-Share Price Index climbed 0.17% to end at 10,586.11 points. Now the index is up 0.18% for the week and recorded 3 straight week gains. Expo Lanka Holdings PLC and LOLC Financial PLC were the top gainers on the index, climbing 19%, rather 1.9% and 2.4%. Trading volumes on the ASPI rose to 29.8 million shares from 25.4 million shares in the previous session. Now the S&P SL20 meanwhile climbed 0.44% and settled at 3,048.63 points. Now the market turnover rose to 961.5 million rupees from 695.1 million rupees in the previous session. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the capital goods sector and the second sector that became the highest contributor. Now, foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 178.8 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 875.2 million rupees.
Oil prices fell by about 1% today as slowing demand forecast by the International Energy Agency offset support from geopolitical tensions and optimism that the United States Federal Reserve might cut interest rates sooner than later this year. Brent crude futures were down 1% to settle at $82.04 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 0.7%, ending at $77.52, with the nearby March contract expiring on Tuesday. The April contract slipped almost 1% to $76.93. Both contracts climbed over 1% yesterday as a larger than expected drop in US retail sales prompted hopes the Federal Reserve will soon start cutting interest rates, which could be positive for oil demand.
Time to take a look at the exchange rates.
The Sri Lanka Standards Institution acknowledged the Commercial Bank of Ceylon's achievement at the Global Performance Excellence Award of Asia Pacific Quality Organization in 2023.
In the meantime, Emirates Sky Cargo was awarded as International Airline of the Year at the Stat Times International Awards for Excellence in Air Cargo.
Here's a look at your corporate news segment in brief.
The Sri Lanka Standards Institution paid a special tribute to Commercial Bank of Ceylon in recognition of the bank's victory at the Global Performance Excellence Awards of the Asia Pacific Quality Organization last year. Commercial Bank was one of only 8 organizations named world-class winners of the Global Performance Excellence Awards, consequent to a submission made by the bank on the recommendation of SLSI to the APQO about the bank's commitment to facilitate business excellence based on Baldrige Excellence Framework for the SLSI's National Quality Award. Emirates Sky Cargo was named International Airline of the Year at the Stat Times International Awards for Excellence in Air Cargo. Voted for by Stat Times International reader base, this prestigious accolade is a testament to the airline's commitment to facilitating the world's rapidly changing supply chain needs. The Emirates Sky Cargo team accepted the award in Mumbai on the sidelines of Air Cargo India 2024 exhibition and conference. In other corporate news, Sri Lanka Telecom PLC's Annual Report 2022 received recognition at the South Asian Federation of Accountants' Best Presented Annual Reports Awards, reaffirming its dedication to global best practices. Sri Lanka Telecom PLC's Annual Report 2022 was recognized for highlighting the company's commitment to integrated reporting, transparency, accountability, high standards of corporate governance disclosures, and overall presentation quality out of many submissions from across South Asia. The prestigious South Asian Federation of Accountants' Best Presented Annual Report Awards, Integrated Reporting Awards, and SARC Anniversary Awards for Corporate Governance Disclosure 2022, hosted by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, recognizes excellence in corporate reporting and corporate governance disclosures.
With that, we end tonight's bulletin of First at 9. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Mahesh Joni.
And I'm Indiveri Amuatta. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time on Other Derana First at 9. Good night.